took too long for Kevin Stefanski to act, and now the damage might be irreversible. While offensive linemen racked up whiffs and miscommunications, and the offense sputtered week after week, the head coach stood by, reshuffling names but never addressing the core problem. Quinshon Judkins has said as much. His critique wasn't about effort or talent, it was about leadership failing to demand accountability. Shedeur Sanders, under siege on every down, never had a chance to showcase what he can do in a functioning system. The offensive line isn't the only unit failing. It's the entire chain of command that's collapsing under pressure. The franchise is at a crossroads.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Stick with the same philosophy and risk driving away its most promising players? Or make sweeping changes and build something new from the wreckage? There's no middle ground left. Judkins and Sanders have already shown they have the talent. It's time for the Browns to show they have the vision and the courage to protect it. Quinshon Judkins wasn't yelling. He wasn't throwing his helmet, calling out teammates or making a scene. What he did was worse, for the Cleveland Browns offensive line at least. He told the truth. Quietly, clearly, and without sugarcoating it. In a recent media session, Judkins gave what might be the most professional takedown of a dysfunctional football system in recent memory. He didn't blame individual linemen by name. He didn't have to. The message was blunt. We're getting sabotaged. And it's coming from our own side of the ball. Shedeur Sanders, who's been taking hits like it's part of the play design, didn't need to echo Judkins to validate it. You can see the dysfunction in every snap, every busted protection, every collapsed pocket. Sanders' struggles haven't been a mystery, they've been a symptom. The quarterback isn't failing. He's being failed. When your O-line is blocking air, falling over blades of grass, and doing everything but engaging the defense, it's not a coincidence. It's a pattern. And both Judkins and Sanders have had to navigate a broken system that leaves them out to dry. It's not just one game. This isn't some fluke outing or off-day explanation. Across multiple matchups, the Browns' offensive front has looked completely unprepared. Against the Bears, the Steelers, the Dolphins, you name it, the tape doesn't lie. The unit up front is the weak link and it's been snapping under the slightest pressure. When linemen stand upright as rushers blow past them, or miss assignments so often it becomes routine, there's no playbook that fixes that on the fly. Sanders is barely upright long enough to read a defense, let alone execute anything resembling a structured. And while the players are getting crushed, literally and figuratively, the coaching staff, particularly head coach Kevin Stefanski, has been oddly passive. Delayed changes, repetitive explanations, a cycle of inaction that's turning criticism into expectation. Judkins calling out the problem is a leadership move. But Stefanski refusing to address it in time? That's a failure. Because these aren't just missed blocks. They're missed opportunities, missed milestones, missed seasons. In the Bears game, Sanders couldn't even finish his second read without pressure exploding in his face. It wasn't exotic blitzes or defensive genius, it was basic breakdowns. Protection schemes falling apart because linemen couldn't, or wouldn't, hold their ground. By the time Judkins even touched the ball on some plays, there were defenders already in his space. No crease, no lead block, just chaos. And this wasn't about effort. You could see both players pushing through it. They weren't quitting. They were surviving. Quinshon Judkins game photos. And when Judkins did get space, he made it count, which makes the sabotage feel worse. Because his burst, his cuts, his vision, they're NFL ready. But instead of celebrating big gains or rookie milestones, he's stuck in damage control mode, making miracle plays out of messes. What he pointed out, delicately but decisively, is that it doesn't matter how much talent you bring to the field if the foundation under you is rotting. You can't build a winning offense on a line that's more liability than asset. Sanders has been sacked, hurried, and hit more times than any quarterback with his skill set should be. And now the effects are showing, not just in stats but in body language. Confidence shaken. Timing disrupted. Game plans abandoned mid-drive. When your quarterback starts second-guessing whether the pocket will even exist after the snap, the mental toll becomes visible. Sanders isn't regressing. He's adapting to dysfunction. That's a dangerous place for any young QB to be. So where's the leadership? Stefanski's job was to make adjustments, protect his players and hold staff accountable. Instead, we've seen coaching indecision that borders on negligence. By the time changes are considered, the damage is already done. This isn't just about bad blocks anymore. It's about allowing a culture where those bad blocks don't cost anyone their spot. Stefanski's unwillingness to overhaul the offensive line earlier is what's allowing this crisis to spread from the field to the locker room. For young talents like Judkins and Sanders, this experience is more than frustrating. It's formative. These early seasons shape careers. They establish habits, outlooks, even reputations. And right now, both are being shaped in the shadow of chaos. The Browns system has them dodging blame for problems they didn't cause. But for how long? The NFL doesn't always make room for context. If stats drop, narratives change. And unless the system is fixed fast, Judkins and Sanders might carry the scars into future seasons. At the heart of this disaster is a cultural rot that's been ignored for too long. Losing streaks aren't just numbers. They chip away at identity. And the Browns have let that erosion continue without a fight. The line doesn't believe it can dominate. The coaching staff doesn't believe change will help. And the young stars are the ones paying the price. This isn't about patching holes anymore. It's about tearing down what's broken and starting over. Coaching staff, blocking schemes, player rotations. Everything should be on the table. Because if they don't act soon, the Browns won't just lose this season, they'll lose the future. The most frustrating part? Shedeur hasn't complained. Not publicly. Not even when the hits kept coming. That quiet endurance only makes the dysfunction more glaring. Because if your young QB is showing more composure than your head coach, something's backward. Sanders deserves better. Judkins deserves better. And honestly, the fans deserve better. You watch these games and the talent is there, you see flashes of it drive after drive. But it all collapses under the same issue: the front line refuses to hold. This isn't hypothetical. The results are on tape. Sanders taking sacks 2 seconds after the snap. Judkins stopped behind the line with no block in sight. And on the rare occasion a play does unfold cleanly, it feels like a miracle, because clean execution isn't the norm here. It's the exception. And that's the problem. The culture of this offense has become reactive instead of proactive. Survival instead of strategy. You can't build a winning team on busted protection and desperate improvisation. After every loss, Stefanski hits the mic with the same routine. We need to be better up front. No specifics. No urgency. Just another non-committal shrug dressed up as a press conference. Meanwhile, Sanders limps back to the locker room and Judkins keeps dodging contact before the line of scrimmage. The disconnect is painful. You've got a coaching staff treating this collapse like a bad quarter, while the players are shouldering a season's worth of punishment. That isn't leadership. That's deflection. When Judkins broke through for a few key runs, it was pure individual brilliance. Vision, patience, and physicality that screamed franchise player. But his moments are flashes, not because he lacks ability but because the design around him refuses to protect or prioritize him. How can you run a proper offense when your RB is making first contact with defenders in the backfield? That's not football. That's survival mode. And Judkins? He's still showing up, every snap, giving 100% while the system gives him nothing. It's not just about bad results anymore. It's about bad patterns. Stefanski's refusal to adjust the core of this offense is malpractice. Rotating linemen, tweaking plays, that's lipstick on a broken machine. The structure is the problem. And every week he delays fixing it, he deepens the crisis. This isn't a team with an injury excuse or a young roster learning on the fly. It's a team with foundational dysfunction, caused by leadership that thinks cosmetic change counts as. You want to talk about the toll this takes? Look at Sanders' sideline moments. Sitting on the bench, helmet off, eyes scanning the field like he's trying to solve a puzzle that keeps changing. That's not confusion, it's exhaustion. Mental, physical, emotional. All of it. This is a quarterback who should be developing rhythm, mastering schemes, building chemistry. Instead, he's forced to play hot potato with the football and hope the pocket lasts longer than a TikTok clip. It's not growth. It's damage. And yet, he still delivers. There are throws, on the move, under pressure, that remind everyone why he's a franchise player. The flashes are undeniable. But they're flashes for a reason. No system. No rhythm. No security. The idea that Sanders is struggling because of personal shortcomings is a narrative that doesn't survive the film room. He's not the issue. He's the symptom. And if they don't fix what's broken around him, those flashes might be all we ever get. Against multiple opponents, the same script plays out. First quarter starts with some promise. 1 or 2 decent plays, maybe a clean drive. Then the breakdowns begin. Pressure from the edges. Missed stunts. Linemen disengaging mid-play like they're clocking out early. By the third quarter, you can see it on Judkins' face. The strain. The frustration. The mental fatigue of knowing the lane won't be there. And on the other side, Sanders is picking turf out of his jersey again. Lather, rinse, repeat. In his rare public comments, Shedeur has stayed diplomatic. But there are moments, slight shifts in tone, long pauses before he answers, where the frustration leaks through. Because how long can you keep shouldering blame for an offense that refuses to protect its own talent? He knows what's wrong. Everyone does. And that's what makes it worse. This isn't a mystery. It's just unresolved. And players like Shedeur are left performing triage while the coaches keep rearranging deck chairs. Stefanski keeps talking about accountability. But what does that mean if no one's held to it? The line doesn't change. The system stays the same. The excuses stay on loop. And meanwhile, the season slips further into the abyss. When your head coach watches his stars get sabotaged and decides the solution is patience, that's not a strategy. That's surrender. And Judkins and Sanders don't have time for surrender. Their careers are happening now. You can chart the Browns' collapse in real time just by watching a single game. The offense starts with hope. Judkins makes a solid cut, Sanders drops a clean pass, but then comes the unraveling. A missed block. A blown assignment. And then another. The air leaves the stadium. It's not the score that defines the Browns this season, it's the vibe. You don't need to see the scoreboard to know they're losing. You can see it in their body language, in the frustration after another wasted drive, in Sanders' eyes as he walks off the field, helmet in hand. And that sideline body language? It's not subtle. Shedeur sitting alone, head down, replaying every second in his mind. Not because he made the wrong throw, but because the throw never had a chance. Because no one held the edge. Because once again the line folded like it was made of origami. You're watching a future franchise QB deteriorate mentally. And the worst part? No one on the coaching staff seems alarmed. They treat it like normal. Like this is just what development looks like. It's not. It's sabotage and slow. Stefanski still insists on trusting the process. But what process? Trusting a blocking unit that can't identify blitzers? Trusting schemes that leave your stars hanging out to dry? The only consistent part of this process is how predictably it fails. There's no creativity, no real-time correction, no accountability. Just repeat errors and blank stares. You don't fix dysfunction by pretending it's normal. But Stefanski has tried that for weeks, and it's left his young stars exposed. Every carry Judkins gets is a gamble. Not on what he'll do, but on whether he'll get a fair shot. Sometimes the defense is already collapsing on him before he hits the line. Other times he has to reverse course immediately just to avoid getting swallowed up. And yet, when he does break through, he makes defenders look silly. That's the tragedy. Judkins can be the guy. He wants to be the guy. But the system keeps throwing bricks in front of him while asking for miracles in return. That Titans game was the blueprint for disaster. Pressure up the middle. Edge rushers left unblocked. No timing. No rhythm. Just scramble plays and broken designs. It felt like the Browns were outcoached before they even stepped on the field. And Shedeur? He still showed flashes. That one sideline throw under pressure should have been on every highlight reel. But how many times does he have to pull off the impossible just to break even? He's not a magician. He's a quarterback. If this is Stefanski's version of development, it's malpractice. He's got two future stars, Judkins and Sanders, being reduced to placeholders in a failed experiment. This isn't about patience anymore. It's about negligence. They needed adjustments 6 weeks ago. Instead, Stefanski's been slow to change and quick to explain it all away. And now the team's identity has morphed into a cautionary tale. What happens when leadership refuses to lead and young talent pays the... Across these matchups, it's clear that Sanders isn't just dealing with bad blocking. He's dealing with trauma. Snap after snap, he's flinching. Not because he's afraid, but because he knows what's coming. That's muscle memory now. That's what dysfunction does to quarterbacks. And when your QB starts bracing for impact before the ball is even in his hands, that's on the coaching staff. That's not a Shedeur problem. That's an organizational failure from the top down. Fans have started noticing it too. The hope is fading. Not because of Judkins. Not because of Sanders. But because the same problems keep happening and the people responsible refuse to admit the core issue. The offensive line isn't just bad. It's toxic. And toxicity spreads. It kills confidence. It silences momentum. It breaks players. The Browns are now a team with talent and no belief. And that's the most dangerous combo in football, because it looks good on paper and collapses in real life. Shedeur's sideline moments have gone from intense to numb. That 1,000-yard stare? That's what happens when you give everything and get nothing back. He's not discouraged because of the scoreboard. He's discouraged because the same avoidable mistakes keep repeating. And when you start expecting failure, you stop growing. That's the fear here. That Sanders is already adjusting downward, shortening his reads, abandoning plays early, losing trust in the pocket. Those are the kind of habits that can stick for a career. Judkins hasn't said much since his quiet but scathing comments. He didn't need to. His runs say enough. Every snap is effort over expectation. But how long can that last? Eventually, even the most determined players burn out when their effort isn't matched by structure. And if the Browns aren't careful, they'll lose him, not to another team but to disillusionment. Because no player wants to keep pushing through a wall that everyone else just pretends isn't there. Stefanski keeps talking about growing pains, like this is a rebuilding year. But when your offense is stacked with this kind of young talent, growing pains don't look like systemic breakdowns, they look like misused resources. And right now, Sanders and Judkins aren't growing. They're being worn down. Every presser sounds like a therapy session, words meant to calm, not fix. The disconnect between what's being said and what's actually happening is exhausting. And when your leaders are using language to manage optics instead of solving problems, you've already lost the locker room. Across every game, the reality is brutally consistent. Sanders is under siege. Judkins is running through brick walls. And the defense? It's playing more minutes than it should because the offense can't stay on the field. It's all connected, and the source of that domino effect is right up front. You don't need a deep dive analytics team to see it. You need functioning eyes. This line isn't holding. The scheme isn't adapting. And the people responsible aren't being held accountable. There's nothing complicated about that. When Judkins gets a rare clean gap, it's a different game. His speed, his footwork, the vision, it's elite. You can see what this offense could be. But those windows are rare and they're closing. If the Browns don't restructure fast, they're wasting a prime rookie year. This isn't just about stats. It's about development. Judkins is being trained to expect chaos. That's a dangerous mindset. He's running with one eye on the defender and the other on the collapsing wall that should be protecting him. The story has played out across every matchup this season. Whether it's a nationally televised meltdown or a quiet loss that barely made headlines, the pattern repeats. And each game that goes by without change chips away at the future. This team isn't just losing on Sundays, they're losing during the week. In meetings, in practice, in the decisions not made. This culture of accepting failure in the trenches has infected everything else, and now the entire operation is breaking down. It all loops back to coaching. Stefanski isn't the only issue, but he's the one who could have stopped it. Weeks ago. Months ago. Instead, he watched it unfold like a spectator, clinging to the idea that tweaks and patience would turn things around. That mindset, slow to act, quick to excuse, is exactly how teams lose their window. Judkins and Sanders are the window. You build around them, not over them. And right now, the Browns are burying both under avoidable failure. Shedeur said recently that he trusts his guys. But how much longer can that hold? Trust needs reinforcement. Trust breaks when you're hit on every third dropback and your protection looks lost in basic assignments. You can hear the wear in his voice. The answers are shorter. The tone's flatter. He's saying the right things, but the energy isn't there. Not because he doesn't care, but because carrying a broken system eventually gets too heavy. Look at the sideline shots during these games, Shedeur and Judkins sitting next to each other, barely speaking, just decompressing. Not sulking. Processing. They're trying to stay locked in while everything around them unravels. It's more than a bad team. It's a bad environment. One that punishes effort and rewards excuses. You can't win that way. You can't grow that way. And you definitely can't keep your rising stars that way. And every week it ends the same. Stefanski behind a mic, eyes tired, talking about how they'll look at the tape. At this point, the tape's not just evidence, it's indictment. It shows you the sabotage. It shows you the non-adjustments. It shows you a coaching staff that's become a spectator to its own collapse. And if ownership doesn't act fast, this season won't be the only thing lost. Because Judkins and Sanders aren't just part of a rebuild. They are the rebuild. But no amount of talent survives long in a culture that refuses to protect it. So now the Browns are sitting at a crossroads, again. And not the exciting kind. This one's more like a flashing red light, alarms blaring, smoke already filling the building. And Stefanski? Still looking for the instruction manual while the fire spreads. You can't keep treating every game like it's a learning experience when nothing is actually being learned. At some point, development turns into damage. And for Judkins and Sanders, that point was weeks ago. What's left now is just cleanup. The worst part of all of this? The longer the Browns keep pretending everything's not that bad, the more irreversible the damage becomes. Shedeur isn't just trying to win games, he's trying to survive long enough to matter in this league. The hits he's taking now don't just bruise. They linger. In the ribs. In the mindset. In the decisions he makes next season and the season after that. When a player starts questioning if they can trust their own team, that's when you lose. Stefanski says he's confident they're heading in the right direction. Based on what? The growing body count in the backfield? The weekly implosions? The sideline stares that feel less like focus and more like quiet resignation? At this point, even his words sound like they've given up. There's no fire. No urgency. Just another vague answer to a very clear problem. You can't build a future on wishful thinking. You need action. And the Browns haven't seen any. And then there's Judkins. Still showing up. Still fighting. Still trying to create spark in a system that keeps leaving him stranded. If this kid had even a competent blocking unit, we'd be talking about breakout runs, not blocked lanes. His effort has never been the problem. But effort without support eventually turns into resentment. And that's where the Browns are skating dangerously close, driving their best talent into disillusionment one busted play at a time. If you're watching this thinking, how much longer can this go on? You're not alone. Judkins and Sanders didn't sign up for this mess, but they're stuck in it unless real changes happen soon. So drop your thoughts in the comments, share this with someone who's been yelling at the screen every Sunday, and hit that subscribe button if you're tired of the Browns making the same mistakes on loop. Because this is what wasted potential looks like. And it deserves better.